Byron, are you ready? Zach's not here? If he remembers. You good? Until you good? All right. Good evening. We are going to call the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education public hearing number 2 at 5:30 to order. And at this time, I would entertain a motion for the adoption of our agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Ms. Cook. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Be 4-0. Let the record reflect that Mr. Holmes has not yet arrived. We anticipate him getting here. All right, so then I will turn it over to Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members and public. We're here this evening at our 5:30 p.m. meeting for millage rate hearing number 2. By law, we're required to have 3 public hearings anytime we're recommending a millage rate that will be not all the way back to our rollback rate. So again, this is meeting number 2. Meeting number 3 will be next Tuesday, the 24th at 6 o'clock p.m. here, and then we'll have a called board meeting at 6:30 to recommend the millage rate. Some of our non-negotiables: professional, accountable, and communicate effectively. And as I talked with you this morning, hopefully this presentation will focus on number 3, communicating effectively. Our brand and our vision, a distinctive brand, strong leaders, great schools. Everything we do should be in support of our mission and our roadmaps of success, which all of our color-coded boxes support missions for student achievement. So I want just a little bit of background information. At our June 18th meeting, regular board meeting, we recommended and got the budget adopted for FY25. At that time, we had used significant estimates in the budget for taxation, assessment values, et cetera, and now some of those values have come in and been more finalized. Because of the reassessment of property, and there's been an increase for that, therefore we are here tonight to talk through the rollback rate, millage rate, or recommended rate with you all. Every year I try to go over some important terms for you and the public to have a little better understanding of. So ad valorem tax or property tax, the bills will be going out when all of the process with the county and school system is finalized. There will be a total taxation on the bill. About 2/3 of that is normally the school system. That is a fact. I know we hear that a lot, but that is true. Certified tax digest, that's the digest that Ms. Hollums takes up to Atlanta to get certified every year. It's normally due September 1st. I know she has an extension this year. Levying authority is you, Griffin-Spalding. Mill, the value of one mill, we get a digest and it's in the billions. You normally take that value and divide it by 1,000 and it gives you a per mill rate for the counties. And I've added a slide into our presentation based on feedback this morning that'll show you the value of a mill in some surrounding counties. So ours is about $2.5 million for the school system. Millage rate for FY25, we're recommending to leave the rate at 16.742. I've got some slides later that show you how many years in a row that has been the case. If you decided to roll the rate back, it would go to 16.029. In the last few years, there's been a bigger discrepancy in that rollback rate. It was into the 14s, so there wasn't as much assessment increase this year as there has been in the past. The difference in the rollback rate of 16.029 and what we would be recommending is the bottom bullet here, 0.713 of a mill. Again, the value of a mill, $2.5 million. Recommending authority is the Board of Education. Rollback rate, as I had mentioned earlier, 16.029. One of our required advertisements is our current and 5-year tax digest. This has to run in the paper and be advertised 10 days prior to the voting of the New Year's millage rate. So if you would focus on the far right-hand column, 2024, this bottom figure of 7.9% and an increase of 3.1 million, that is total taxes. That's assessment increases, which is why you're here today, and also new growth. And I think the new growth would be about 1.2 million. Even if you rolled the rate back, you would still be eligible for that. So sometimes it's confusing in the way we advertise it. So the increase for assessments is 4.45%. Total amount of total taxes, about 7.9%. This is also on our website, advertised. Dr. Simmons will be signing this, what I call yellow form. Once this is all finalized, this gives you a little bit of an insight of 23 and 24 values and some calculations that we work with the tax commissioner's office to come up with. This is just to show you what actually has to go in to the state. 10-year millage rate trend for Griffin-Spalding schools. I had to keep it 10 years, I had to reduce a few years like 2012, 13, and 14, and those rates were actually in the 19s. So if you'll just take a look for the last, if we go with 16.742, this would be the 5th year in a row that rate would be the same. Some of our surrounding counties, and this is 2023 data. So FY25 is the budget year we're operating on, but when we talk about millage rate, we're talking calendar year 2024, and then we haven't been able to get everybody else's rate around us, so this is actually 2023. But I've got all of our RESA districts on here, plus some of the ones I've worked in the past. I always talk to you about the ones that are at the 20 mil cap. So school systems by law cannot raise past 20 mils unless they get legislative approval. So you can see Muskogee down in Columbus is at 23, 20 in Henry. So there's a couple on here that are above it. Rockdale's at 20 as well. The next slide, I added this from some feedback we had this morning. Doing that calculation that I mentioned earlier, I talked with Dr. Simmons. We thought it was important for the public to see the value of a meal, and you've got us in alphabetical order down at the bottom. So this will give you a little bit more clarity. Some of the bigger districts like Henry, for example, 12 million. So their millage value of a meal is 6 times higher than ours, plus their rate's 20. So that just gives you a little bit of impact of the ones around us. A property value comparison. I just wanted to show you on a $100,000 house, the one on the left, if we rolled the rate back, the taxpayer would save $28.52. So, you know, if they don't have an assessment increase and it's still 100, then they'd still be paying $669.68. So the savings on the rollback will be $28.52 on that property. And then on a $200,000 house, it's kind of the same comparison, which is a total of 57.04. And this also is a similar comparison when it shows you property value of 100 on the left, same kind of calculation, but if it's reassessed at 130, so it has a 30% increase, you can see what the taxes would go to. So based on the assessment, you'd go, if you just look at the third lines down, 16.72 on both, 742 on both sides, that's what that assessment would create. Okay. I added a bullet down at the bottom just so that you would understand in bold, GSCS does not assign property values nor reassess existing properties. So we just want to make sure that you're charged with setting a rate for taxation that considers these values, and we were concerned that the public may not understand your role in the process, so we added that bullet. The next couple of slides are advertisements on Saturday, September the 7th. This by law is how the advertisement has to read. So we ran this article to advertise all 3 hearings, and then this past Saturday we ran an additional ad advertised in the September 24th meeting. And then also, as I said this morning, Mr. Adam Pugh, you didn't hear me thanking you, but you in here now. So I talked a little bit about our relationship with the newspaper in town and how we were able to call and talk to them about what this press release really meant. So we crafted it so people would understand what we're trying to really accomplish here with the rate being the same. The press release is actually a little bit longer. Mr. Pugh had added in some surrounding county millage rates, but for this to make it fit the page, we kind of removed that. So our timeline, we're in the middle of the page, September 17th. We'll finish this hearing tonight. We'll come back next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Then we'll ask for a call meeting at 6:30. And then I know we have a commissioner in the audience. We're trying to respect the September 26th meeting that's already on the calendar. So if all this goes as planned, there won't be a special meeting needing to be created for that. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Byron. Board members, any questions for Mr. Jones? Yes, Mr. Brown?
All right, Mr. Jones, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. This is round two of some questions that I have as it relates to the millage rate, just so that we are able to educate the general public as to what is going on with the millage rate and how it is therefore advertised. With this series of questions, it's a yes or no, and if you need to expound, you may do so. Can you tell me, Mr. Jones, this is a yes or a no, is it Georgia law that it has to be advertised and worded a certain way in the newspaper?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Can you talk about that law just a little bit?
So the law requires you to have 3 public hearings and advertise them accordingly 7 days prior to prescribed hearing. You have to have it worded a certain way. You cannot vary. It has to be no smaller, I believe, than 30 inches wide. And like I said, you have to have, you can have 2 hearings on one day. One of the 3 has to start at least by 6 o'clock, I think it is. That's why we've got one of them scheduled at 6. Can't start any earlier.
Yes, sir. And is this not a true statement that in 2023, 2022, 2021, and 2020, that the Board of Education has voted to keep the millage rate the same?
That's true.
Okay? And lastly, for the people that are watching at home and in the audience, can you tell us what that proposed millage rate has been for the last 4 years?
16.742.
Okay, 16.742. Okay? And the next question actually is to communications. I know that, and here's an opportunity, Dr. Simmons, that we could probably do maybe a special publication. My understanding that communication, the stakeholders get some type of quarterly communication on what's going on in the school district. I am asking that when we do things like millage rate, that a special publication goes out to our stakeholders. Because what we do know is that the press release and the information that went out saying that the Board of Education will keep the millage rate the same went out in the regular communicator that goes to our staff. So is there any way that we can, in the future, do a special communicator that goes to our stakeholders, letting them know this information, being that it affects them as business owners and, of course, as property owners? All right, thank you so much. All right, that's no further questions. Thank you so much.
All right. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Doss. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for being here. How does, on the page where it says the current rate at 16.742 minus 0.713, how do we come up with the 0.713 rollback? How is that calculated?
And I'm just going to refer to the rollback millage form, and Ms. Hollums, in all transparency, helps us calculate this and looks at reassessed values from the prior year. I'm focusing on that column that says reassessment of existing real property in the middle of that screen, and it looks at that 127 million minus exemptions at 107 million, and there's a ratio that's compared, state formula to come up with that. And the ratio of that is 4.45% on all of the properties combined.
Okay.
I believe it was last year, our advertised rate was, I believe it was 15%, but the 5-year history might have showed 18% because there's some new growth. So dramatically different in the amount of reassessed properties and values. It still went up, but the value of it was not astronomical like it has been the last few years.
So the answer is that there's a calculation that Ms. Hollums has to use for
He's providing
what
this
the
information.
rollback rate would be.
Yes.
Would our rollback rate be the same as the county?
No, we have a different exemption schedule,
Okay.
and some exemptions are different for school systems than regular county entities.
Okay. All right.
It'll
Thank
vary
you.
a little bit.
Excuse me?
It'll vary a little bit. They don't have, I believe, a 20 mil cap, et cetera. There's different things that we have that the
Okay.
county doesn't have.
I know, every year we get a little bit more educated about this. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, and my last and final question, I had a constituent that texted me that said, what specific budget items are paid through the millage rate? So I know that when they came in today, that you provided them a Griffin-Spalding County School's adopted budget sheet. All right, and so could you, for those that are either in the audience or online, can you walk through on how you get that total of the monies that are paid through the millage rate?
Right, so at the top of our page here, we obviously get about, I'm gonna say $42 to $43 million from ad valorem taxes, title ad valorem taxes when people go and buy vehicles, and now there's an assigned rate, 6 to 7 to 8% when you buy a vehicle, we get that as well. That brings in approximately $3.5 to $4 million a year. We have our state QBE funds, which is based solely on enrollment or our wealth ranking in the state. That brings in about $66 million. And then there's some other small amounts of money, and that totals about $111 million. And then we budget on a function basis and cost center. So function, this is all prescribed by the state. Function 1,000, for example, is instruction. So the state wants to track how much we're spending in the classroom.
Yes,
And you've heard me talk before about a 65% rule and how the state would like for us to track that, but we waive that. So a lot of the things that we're budgeting for the $40 million, that's the tax piece, you know, inflation, gas cost, insurance, mandated state salary increases, where we might pass that on to all employees, but it's not funded through the formulas of the state. For example, if we earn 400 teachers, but we employ 450, the other 50 are getting the same increase, and that is a certain amount of taxation it takes to fill that up, plus the benefit cost increases that we have no control over.
Okay. And so, Mr. Chair, may I ask the audience a question just to see, does that help you to understand where your tax dollars are going as it relates to the millage rate and how it's used in our school district? General public? Yes? Yes? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Okay. Any other board members?
I'm trying to find it. Hang on a minute. Just go to that new slide, Mr. The one you added from this morning, Mr. Jones, please.
Okay? Value of a meal per county.
Yes. And go all the way down to Spalding, I think we were last. So if the rollback rate is .713, that's a little bit over half of the $2.3 million. That would be what we would stand to lose if we voted to roll it back to the,
What we would lose, we need to focus on, let me show you one more slide. The 5-year history is where we can really get that answer. So on the far right-hand side, if we rolled back to 16.029, the figure that's the 3.120 million on the next to the last figure on the right, that would be 1.2 million, because we would only get new growth in the county. So it's about a $2 million difference. Also, you've got to consider we have the tax fee, collection fee that has to come out of that,
right.
plus uncollectibles, because there are delinquent accounts, et cetera, where people on payment plans, et cetera.
Gotcha.
So the answer is 1.2 million is what that would be, not 3.1 million.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Doss.
No other questions? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
At this time, we have nothing for executive session, so I would entertain it to adjourn.
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak?
No one had signed up for
Oh,
public
okay.
comment.
Okay. I didn't
So-
hear you ask her. Okay.
I did it via text. I did it while he was talking. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn until we have our 6 o'clock meeting in about 5 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0. I think that was a hand raised. 4-0. You're